Hey guys, LJ here, back on the scene, bringing you some ways, some thoughts, some ideas, some energy towards tuning you. And yeah, I wanted to get back on here with the YouTube, get back on with the podcast, give you a chance to officially find this content more easily, and just excited to start sharing more about some of what I want to talk to you about today, which is the awesome power of tuning you and the awesome power of tuning me, and really why I'm so excited about this and all about this with my work in creating, my realizing how I can direct things like my training in years in yoga and meditation and psychology and studying consciousness and creativity and our ways of feeling more connected. So, yes, starting to love just boiling it all down to this wording, tuning you. And I love that word tune because it implies that we're addressing ourselves on many levels, in many ways, as the multidimensional beings that we are, right? And so we start to play with and look at what sort of power do we have in how we tune ourselves, how we take care of ourselves, how we can have an effect or an influence or an impact on how we feel, how we're doing, what sort of state of being our bodies in, our energies in, our emotions are in. And also, yeah, how that relates to our feelings of spiritual connection, meaning just a sense of meaning and purpose in life, right? And even just a sense of feelings of connection to other humans and just our feelings about life, right? So when we start to really look at the awesome power of tuning ourselves, we can start to see that it's really the best way to use things like self-care, things like study and spirituality, personal development, personal growth, to bring it all together and understand that most of all, it's all energy too. And that you're made of energy, I'm made of energy, our thoughts are energy, our feelings are energy, our lives are all about energy, right? What's happening in our relationships is all about energy. What's happening in our creating and work lives is all about energy, right? And we start to look at how our energy not only is affecting us, right, and how we feel, and a part of how we're thinking, and a part of even what sort of health we're in right now, and manifesting things like illness and disease, all comes from things like our state of being, right? We now know things like stress, speaking of state of being, that a lot of us tend to be just residing in a lot of the time, just living in fight or flight and not even realizing it because it just feels so natural, even though it's actually not natural to be in a stressed out state in the body most, if not all the time. We now know the detrimental effects of when we're stressed, how that affects our health, how that affects our emotions, how that affects our resilience, right? And even the choices that we're making. So we now know that our state of being is huge and it really affects us and our lives and our health, yes, and our well being, but also, yeah, what sort of energy we're bringing to our lives, to our projects, to our relationships, to our communities. It's also about how we're tuning ourselves, right? What sort of state of being are we in? And how can that be, seen as how it's creating our lives so clearly, right? So part of this approach is just starting to own that we have a power, that we have an impact, that we play a role in our state of being, right? And thus in the energy that we're in, the energy that we're bringing and being in life, right? And with others, in our workplaces, in our families, in our relationships, right? And that we can just start to own that we're the only ones actually who have that ultimate power in how our state of being is, what energy we're in, and then absolutely how that's affecting everything and everyone around us and in our lives, right? So it can be even overwhelming when we realize our role, our responsibility, but we can also see it as exciting, inspiring, and even motivating to stay on top of our momentum of how we're feeling, right? And that's what I get excited about is how we can impact and influence our state of being, right? In meaning, yes, how can we impact and influence our mind and our mindset, how we're thinking, how we're focusing, what we're paying attention to, because that's so important, right? We know that our mind creates so much, if not all of our life, right? And our well being and our state of health, and even how we're moving through the world, right? So, our mind, our mindset, absolutely part of what we're taking care of, what we're cultivating, what we're tuning with things like daily practices. Also, tuning our emotional state, right? And of course, looking at the absolute correlation and combination of how the mind affects the emotions and how the emotions affect the mind, right? And starting to really delve into what we now know about how it's all connected. And then again, how we can play a role, how we can actually tune ourselves with our mind, with our mindset, with our focus, with our use of our attention, use of our imagination. But this is going to make a big, huge impact on how we're feeling and how we're going about life, right? And then with our tuning, of course, we get to tune ourselves physically with the body, right? And the physiology that we get to take care of and shift and change and do things like get ourselves out of that stressed out state, that fight or flight, and back towards more like calm and a more relaxed state of being, which we now know is not only so much healthier for the body, we're more resilient, our immunity is stronger, but also we just feel better when we're relaxed and we function better. We actually have more energy to put into other things like feeling creative, right? So taking care of our state of being physically absolutely is part of this deal, right? And so that's where we can see that we're using things like movement, like breath, things to help us get back into the body, things to just take ownership again of the fact that we have a role in even our physiology and even our biochemistry and even how that's playing out in our bodies right now, right? And even things like genetics are often a predisposition, right? Those genes are really often more triggered by lifestyle. So when we're taking care of our state of being, we're even having a role in how our genetics are going to unfold, right? And whether or not some of those possibilities are going to become probabilities as far as what we're programmed for with our DNA, right? Has a lot to do with our state of being. So, yeah, tuning ourselves mentally, tuning ourselves physically, physiologically, biochemically with things like the simplest of practices, right? Which, of course, again, can be movement, breath, but also things like music, dancing, nature, silence, writing, all sorts of things that can influence these realms, right? You name it. And then we also get to address it all again as energy. So when we're doing things that take care of our energy, and also just being aware that everything affects our energy. A big part of this approach is realizing that everything that we are listening to, everything that we are watching, reading, everyone we're hanging out with is affecting our energy. So is tuning us, right? Is tuning us mentally with our mindset and our focus and our attention, is tuning us even emotionally, right? Is tuning us energetically because, right, it's all energy and it's affecting us no matter what. So it becomes about being more conscious too and intentional with what we're tuning ourselves with and what we're listening to, what we're watching, who we're hanging out with, what we're reading, right? What we're putting our attention on as part of tuning ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, energetically. And then, yeah, we also get to play with the awareness that a lot of these practices and even things like our perspectives are going to be energy medicine of their own. an energy work that we're actually doing with ourselves, to ourselves, for ourselves, and making powerful changes in, again, our state of being and our physiology and our biochemistry, and yes, our energy, when we just start to address it all as energy and start to now take care of our energy more, and even start to realize that that's what our daily practices are about, are here to help us manage our energy, right? So again, whether that's our use of movement, breath, things like meditation, mindfulness, ways we can, employ the mind and study and listen and write, time in nature, music, sound, people, community, things, so all these ways that we start to realize we have a choice in allowing, choosing, being more intentional about, because they are all tuning us all the time. And yeah, we can start to see that it's our power and our prowess to start to tune ourselves more consciously, more intentionally. And once we find those things that work for us, right, that help us tune ourselves, whether it's practices, whether it's perspectives we're tuning into, whether it's ways that we're taking care of our psychology, right, and continuing to be aware of that, right, and the influences there. But we start to see that, yeah, as we start to tune ourselves more, that we can start to see some amazing changes, right, in all realms, because we're now taking ownership of this truth that it's all connected, that it's all energy, and that we are the ones who actually play the biggest role in all these aspects with ourselves, even though, of course, other people play a role. But in the end, we're the only one, right, who can really tune ourselves, who can really be aware of what we're tuning ourselves with, how that's feeling, how that's working for us. But yeah, once we find things that really like work for us, meaning they tune us in a way that help us feel better, help us focus in the ways that we want, help us get more relaxed, help us get more confident, help us feel more connected to ourselves, to our body, to our breath, and to other people, right? So all these things is part of what tunes us. And that as we stay on top of this momentum, right, and just be in this awareness more that this tuning thing is going on, and that this is a big part of our power as humans, and even like part of our magic as humans, is to realize this truth and to play with it more and to employ it more and to get more daily and intentional with what we are tuning ourselves with, right? And even just getting excited that this is a big way we can change our lives, change our health, shift how we're feeling mentally, emotionally, and of course, physically. And also see big changes in things like our relationships and even who we're vibing up with and how we're vibing up with them, because it's all energy, right? And really changing the energy that we have to be in our projects, right? In our creations, in our passion, in our purpose, which I feel like is a big reason to be tuning ourselves, right? If we can be having a better impact on the world, right? And even being a more contribution because of how we're tuning ourselves. So, yeah, just a little bit of why I'm all about this Tune You. And so excited to be here with you, and going to keep showing up, sharing more and more about the perspectives, the practices, and the psychology that we can keep playing with, right? Keep delving into, keep exploring, experimenting with, to keep tuning ourselves so that we can just feel better and enjoy this life, right? And feel more connected to ourselves, to our truth, to who we are, to our higher self, even, right? And absolutely more connected to others and the world and the universe and spiritually, if we like that. So I hope this is helpful today to you along your journey. And if you've watched this far, how about leave an emoji in the comments to let me know that you're here? And how about just an image of something that you know tunes you in a way that you like, whether it's like a music note, because music really does it for you, picture of a tree, because it's nature, maybe something like travel, something you know works for you, something like friends, something like your cat or your dog, or reading, right, or walking. So many things that can tune us, that we can start to choose more and use more to tune us to how we do want to feel and function and flow, right? So hope this is helpful to you, and sending you so much love on this day here. And be back soon for some more about how to tune you. My name's LJ or Laura Jane, and I'm so glad to be here with you guys.